the Around the NFL podcast. Leads the league in game-winning drives.
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL, the Week 15 flagship program. Whoa, Dan Hanzus here with heroes Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. And when Argentina took the World Cup home on penalty shots at 12:57 p.m. Eastern, it felt like a hole that the NFL would not be able to dig out of.
It's a big deficit.
One of the greatest sporting events of the 21st century. And I'm not going to say anything that happened in the NFL today tops what Messi and friends accomplished. And shout out to France. Gave it their all.
Sure.
But, man, we had some bangers in our league today.
It was a hard cut from,
and yesterday, I should say.
One of the most memorable sporting events ever to Jacksonville within like 3 minutes if you were in the States and watching on Fox. And yet, you know what? Those Jaguars delivered just like so many other games today. You didn't want to have a big lead in this weekend of games.
I was thinking that this, we always say, this was the best week of the year. And
This was.
But also going back to the entirety of our show, I mean, because it encapsulated the entire – we've been bathed in football since like early Saturday, and it's been nonstop, and it hasn't really had a dip in terms of the drama and the action. So I would nominate it as the best week of football that we've had ever in our podcast. That said, I can't really remember any of the other weeks
I feel like
on a weekly basis.
I'm with you. I feel like we had this conversation maybe 2 weeks ago that it was the best week. But also, the later you get now into the season, when
it's
the
more meaning.
Remember what we talked about Thursday. This has got to have it Saturday and Sunday in the NFL. So a lot of these games and how they ended have immense ramifications.
I think Messi was feeling the heat from NFL Network. They were like, wow, NFL Network had a triple header and had the biggest comeback ever. And that Bills-Dolphins game may be the most memorable game of the year. We need to step it up.
That's when you saw all the natives of Argentina at the game sobbing. They were saying to themselves, oh, my God, we finally outshine the Ravens and Browns.
That's a tall task.
We don't speak about that part of the triple header.
In fact, as we get into the games, you'll notice in the structuring here, we're going to hit the two Insta Classics from Saturday, and then we're going to kick that other AFC North game down the list a little bit because, quite frankly, there are a large handful, a bushel of great games to get to. So let's start, on Saturday, and let's start with the first game of the week and what I call the greatest lock that has ever been locked in the history of locks. Let's go.
Snap spot. Joseph, right-footed kick. It is good! And the Minnesota Vikings have completed the greatest comeback in the history of the National Football League. From 33 down, they beat the Indianapolis Colts. The Vikings are NFC North champions.
That reminds me, actually. Oh, yes, of course.
Bongos
The
right
God
off the top.
of Bongo approves. Midway through this game, when it was 33-0 at half, I believe it was our buddy Aaron Nagler, who covers all things Packers, who either tweeted or retweeted something along the lines of, oh, I'd love to hear a sizzle reel of Paul Allen today. Paul Allen of KFAN. Well, it ends up we did hear KFAN's Paul Allen on this program because, yes, the Vikings do something that's never been done in the history of the NFL, which is 103 years, by the way. They erase a 33-point deficit, beat the Colts 39-36 on Greg Joseph's 40-yard field goal with 3 seconds left in overtime. And, yes, that's how they finally, at long last, clinched the NFC North. And, Mark, this is a game that I don't even know where to start on this one because it's a game you could watch football your whole life and never see anything like this.
I mean, I'd start with the hole that they buried themselves in. And it's one of these games on Twitter where the Minnesota Vikings, who have been suspicious to onlookers all season for their ability to go to sleep and then maybe wake up at the last minute when these one-score games, they're a regression candidate. this was the game where it was like, yeah, this is the Vikings team we don't trust. You have a blocked punt return 24 yards for a touchdown. You have a lost fumble near the red zone, a botched fake punt that led to another score, and a 17-yard pick six. I mean, all this stuff just unraveled in such inglorious fashion that the Vikings were called out as total frauds, and suddenly we're having rightfully but you're having these Jeff Saturday on Saturday jokes. I mean, every ugly thing is happening. At one point it looks like Justin Jefferson stuck on the ground not moving. You might have just gone to the darkest possible place for the Vikings, and then they worked their way out of it and everything turns around, and what we think about the Vikings at the end of the day is completely different. And I look at this Vikings team in terms of how they must be built mentally and psychologically inside that locker room, is they can think they can win any game ever, and they've done it twice now this season.
Well, they were let back into it in many different ways by the Colts playing it safe.
It's the only way that could happen.
Yeah.
The other team really has to step up in this situation.
Jeff Saturday,
or down.
It doesn't seem like he's getting a lot of the heat here. I see a lot of like Matt Ryan is the owner of the two biggest comebacks in the history of the NFL, and I'm thinking, I mean, they did put up 33 in this game, kind of like they put up 35, although they somehow put up 36 points in the end in this game with one offensive touchdown. And a lot of the reason they didn't score more is they kept running the ball on like 3rd and 5 inside the 10-yard line and settling for field goals. But so many things happened during this comeback. Only Kirk Cousins could come back in a game where, like, I think his PFF score, for what it's worth in this game, was terrible because he had a couple turnover-worthy plays during the comeback. Here are some things that happened. He threw an interception in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes left, up 16. The Colts had a first down in this game. Down 16, sorry, yeah. The Colts had a first down in this game, up 8 with under 4 minutes to go. There were the two Vikings overturned touchdowns, which were just really frustrating. I think
Sinful.
It was the worst officiated game we've ever seen, and it feels good. There was an ultimate ball don't lie situation coming back. And we also saw Jeff Saturday pass on a potential game-winning 53-yard field goal in a day where his kicker was the best player on the field.
Yeah, I thought it was. Let's talk about that fumble, the return. The same Vikings defensive back. Who was it again?
Chandon Sullivan.
Yeah, Sullivan had two plays wrongly overturned that should have been touchdown returns. In the second one, it was absurd. There was no reason the whistle should have been blown on it. It should have been right there at that point of the game of the Vikings having a chance to tie it. And then I thought it was just terrible that the officials, okay, you blow the call, that's one thing, but then not have the common sense to give that guy, a little Sullivan, a break there and foul him for taking off his helmet on top of it. And then I thought about the other thing. After that all transpired and then the ensuing Vikings drive fizzles out and the Colts have the ball and they have the 4th and 1 and they decide to sneak it. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist here, but those officials and the NFL knew they were having a terrible game, the refs. And it's just interesting to me where that QB sneak on 4th down was measured and put down and what they used, which was blowing the whistle and getting to decide where the ball goes, basically, as opposed to where did he reach out, where his knee hit or whatever. That was very interesting to me, the way that all worked out, which then set up, of course, the Dalvin Cook touchdown on another unthinkable gaffe by the Colts.
Right. It seemed like they should have called that a first down by Matt Ryan. And
it was a first down.
I mean, Justin Jefferson had a touchdown taken away last week by a terrible call where he was ruled out of bounds and he wasn't. The first Chandon Sullivan situation led to directly the Kirk Cousins pick six. Mm-hmm. All right. The second Chandon Sullivan situation led to the turnover on downs late in the game. The meltdown we talk about for the offense. These things should not have happened. This was, first of all, if you're an official, you are trained to not blow the whistle early if you don't know exactly what happened, if you don't know that it's a dead ball. That's not happening here at the NFL level. And the Vikings basically should never, as ghastly as their first half was, this should never have gone to overtime. It should never have been as dramatic as it was. They should have flat out won the game in regulation had it been called correctly.
It was so weird.
And Vikings fans have a reason because it does feel like week to week stuff is happening. Again, that Justin Jefferson thing a week ago was huge.
Here's the thing, though. It was a perfect game for both of these teams. It was a perfect showcase for these two teams this season. for the Vikings to come back and now be the author of the greatest comeback in NFL history, but for that comeback to be so weird. But yeah, like I said, Cousins had a 57 PFF grade in this game. They also had
I don't care, though.
No, I don't care.
Yeah.
Of course, a possession in overtime where they had to punt the ball away. That was like a moment where you thought they actually might lose it because the Colts started moving the ball back. KJ Osborne stepped up, and we shouldn't
He's
forget
amazing.
like the football takeaways from this, which is like he looks like a true one. He made himself some money. He's not a free agent yet.
Are you saying he is him?
I mean, he is a guy you can go to
Okay.
in major spots. And Dalvin Cook, to get them within 2 late in the game, had one of the runs of the year. Do we have the call for that run? Because I would love to hear Paul Allen at some point on that run, because him breaking those tackles to me was one of the all-time runs that we've seen. And it kind of gotten buried in everything else that happened.
It's so easy for things to get buried in it. The thing about, we talked about it yesterday, Greg. You were in my living room. That was nice. Mark, you were out of town. Otherwise, you would have been invited as well.
Thank you. I'm sorry to miss it.
Lakeisha was with us. It was very nice. It's not like the Vikings, as you're saying, Greg, played a perfect second half. The only way you could ever come back from 33-zip is to play the perfect half, and the other team has to choke. No, the Vikings are still kind of like, go ahead, Colts, finish this game off, and they just couldn't do it.
They had 19 possessions in the game. That's how you do it.
And Kirk Cousins, I don't really care about the grade or whatever. All I know is he finished with 4 touchdowns and 460 yards in a game they were being shut out at halftime, which that's certainly never happened in football history. And let's hear from Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings coach, who had to be feeling it on a level perhaps he never has felt it on a football field.
When I tell you guys,
Crying coach alert.
when I tell you guys I love you, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. And that will never change. I will ride with this group until they don't let us play any more games.
Yeah, buddy.
So bring it in tight, and then I want to hear you guys celebrate the 2022 NFC North Championship.
All right. Love it.
There are so many stories coming out of this game that Greg Minuski, the linebackers coach, told Eric Kendricks just out of halftime, I guarantee this will be the biggest comeback in NFL history. Eric Kendricks basically said that when the reporters came back to it, he just said, reporters, get out of here. This is our time. We don't want to deal with you right now. And Patrick Peterson was the guy that at halftime kept shouting 5 touchdowns. That's all you need. We got you. And the one thing about Kirk Cousins, because maybe the overall grade was bad, but if you go look at EPA, for instance, in the second half, he generated the second most passing EPA in the second half in overtime by a quarterback all season, and he had more open receivers in the second half than twice in the first. Just saying that his second half grade, if they break it down that way, was phenomenal.
That's what I mean, though. Like, he had to have so many chances. That's why I was so interested. They had 19 possessions, like I mentioned. For instance, like the Browns and the Ravens had 9 each in their games. They have 17. They were able to withstand Cousins throwing that interception in the fourth quarter and turning the ball over on downs when he made a ghastly decision to run out of nowhere on fourth down and got tackled, because the defense of the Vikings stepped up and just totally stopped Matt Ryan and the Colts from doing anything. And the Colts would be back in the in the race hunt, in the hunt graphic, if not for this result.
Thankfully, they're not.
That was nice.
And yes, I did lock up the Vikings. That is that will never happen again either. I did send a text at one point that I got to stay in lock mode, get it to 30-7, start forcing some turnovers, and let it get weird.
Look at you.
So, but I also was outwardly pushing for the cancellation of the Minnesota Vikings in the first half. So on Twitter. So
I love how when the Vikings are down by 30-plus points and I lock them up, they just lose 40-3. But when they're down 33-0, you lock them up, they come back and win. That's cool.
That's how it works.
Shake it off, buddy. All right, let's keep moving. All-time game there, and then the late game on Saturday night. Major implications in the AFC to a snowy Orchard Park. We go.
Here we go, the game on the line, the snow is flying, the snap is good, the hold is good, the kick is up, the kick is good! It is good! The fireworks go off! The Bills go back to the playoffs for the 4th consecutive year! The Bills win it 32-29! Amazing! Amazing!
Beautiful. John Murphy with the call. WGR. That is Tyler Bass hitting a 25-yard field goal as time expired, pushing the Bills to a 32-29 victory over a game Dolphins team on Saturday night. Buffalo overcame an 8-point deficit in the final quarter with Josh Allen driving his team to scores on each of the final 2 possessions. And yes, it's the 4th straight playoff berth for the Bills. Their 5th and 6th seasons under Sean McDermott. Greggy, like I said, you got to credit the Dolphins. They went up there. They played a really good game. I challenged on this podcast Tua to have any ability to throw the ball with any level of success, and he had plenty of success. In fact, his receivers let him down pretty big time in some big spots. And yet Buffalo found a way, and as a result, they're going to win this division.
I just think of those last 2 drives. They're down 29-21 at home. It almost felt like it was scripted by NBC. Let's keep the field nice and clean, good weather. Let's have some offense early. Let's add the snow in the 4th quarter as the big finish. Let's get the stop from the Bills defense a couple times where
it was NFL Network, by the way.
Oh, that's
have
right.
Some respect.
What am I thinking?
I don't know.
Your employer.
They get a couple stops with Tua where there's miscommunication, not exactly bad plays, but they get a couple stops down 8. And those 2 drives were really telling because the first one was running the ball down their throats. The Allen, when he needs to, can just take off and run, and they get a big run from James Cook, and they get that touchdown quickly. Then they get the stop to tie game. They get the ball back with almost 6 minutes to go, and they do the type of drive we don't think the Bills can kind of do. A 6-minute drive where they just take the will away from the Dolphins, and it's not really with the running games. It was with those arm throws that Josh Allen can make that Tua can't, that nobody can except for maybe Patrick Mahomes. Some of those opposite field hash throws, including on that last drive, including a 3rd down play there, like are just plays people can't make. And he made a few of those in this game to score touchdowns early, but I love that he did it late using his mind, knowing exactly when they were blitzing, when they were dropping off coverage, exactly who to go to. Every decision was just absolutely spot on, and then you win a division title.
Well, in a different situation, with the Bills team we've seen, maybe they melt because at one point it was 2nd and 18 at the Buffalo 13 after Allen had been dropped on a big takedown, and he completes the 15-yarder to Gabe Davis.
That's an arm strength throw right there.
There you go. Then he converts the third down, 3rd and 3 throw as well. So you're right. They were 2 very different drives because the one previous where Allen, who accounted for 381 yards on the day and 4 touchdowns, it's like, okay, he's back. We're good with that. 52 yards on that one drive, and the game-time 2-point conversion. He had offensive linemen out. Mitch Morse got hurt in this. They were already missing a guard. It's like they've been dealing with offensive line issues for weeks. He just put it on his back in a snowy environment, and he did it. I loved it. This was the Bills team we were waiting for.
What can he do? Like, when you're watching this, Dan, aren't you thinking, like, this is one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life? Like, this game showed him doing every different possible thing that you can do as a quarterback.
Yeah, I think what makes him so special is that variety of skills he brings. If you need to make a Herbert-like throw, he can give you that. If you need him to truck somebody, he can do that. If you need him to get down the edge and shoot down the sideline 50 yards, he could do that. He's the perfect quarterback in a lot of ways, and in the perfect city, in the perfect region. Like, he's built for this type of weather. I just thought, it was a special, fun game, a Saturday night game in December. Everybody in that stadium will remember that one forever. And again, like, to circle back to Miami, I think, this is where I think, not just to me, but to anybody else that was doubting them, they're not going to collapse, I don't think. I think they're going to get one of those wild card spots, and they could be a tough out in the playoffs. I don't think they're a perfect team, but being able to hang in that setting really showed their abilities, as frustrating as that was. And I mean specifically on the offensive side, that they were able to go into the elements and move the ball when necessary.
Yeah, I think that, right. Number one, Mike McDaniel psychologically kind of prepped them for, we don't care about the weather. That's not going to be an excuse, which I'm not saying that's what Dolphins teams have been, but some kind of would go up there and fold. But secondly, the concept of had they been figured out after the Niners and Chargers meltdowns, the defensive coordinators now have a roadmap to slow down Tua and the whole thing. Well, last night, it wasn't perfect, but I don't think that was proven at all. They're going to figure out their own way to counteract what people are doing to them.
Their defense didn't come up big in a few crucial spots. They came back in that game down 14 or 13, 21-13 at one point, all the way to up 29-21. So they ripped off those 16 points. And then the defense didn't play as well. But you got to love what you got out of Raheem Mostert. You get the big play out of Jalen Waddle. Like, Mostert and their running game can change it. And it's just cool to even have the Dolphins involved in games like this. I'm with you, Dan. I don't think they're going to collapse. I think they make the playoffs. I'll remember this game forever. I was watching it in Hanano Cafe with Keisha, and there's a band playing there. This, we wish Chris Wessling was here with us, obviously, for this show. And I really wish he was there with us last night. There's a band playing, and you're seeing the snow falling in Buffalo, and you got all the holiday lights and Keisha, and we're having a good time just watching like a classic NFL game. That's
beautiful. The good stuff.
I have a question for Greg.
Yes. Were
you in Buffalo observing this? Would you have been one of the people throwing the snowballs, or do you not approve of that type of behavior?
Good question.
I don't have a hot take on this.
Would you?
I don't think I would be throwing snowballs at anyone. No. I mean, maybe at my friends. I would not be throwing it on the field.
So,
no.
All right. So at a friend. Okay.
That's fair. Yeah. And the Dolphins did have 405 yards of offense in this game. They ran for more than 100 yards for the first time since Week 10, but they've also now lost all 3 of their December games. So they have the Packers coming up, and they got to win. They got to end this losing streak. But at the same time, if they would have went up there and gotten their doors blown off,
we would be
it's
writing
snowball.
Them off. Yep.
It's an avalanche. See how it all ties together.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's where they're at. Let's see how they close their season. Let's take a break, and we continue to roll through Week 15. Let's get to Sunday. All right, 2 games Saturday. Let's get to Sunday, starting with, who would have thought here as we edge toward late December, we'd be rushing to get to a game from Jacksonville. But that's where we're at because the Jaguars are on the prowl, and the guy behind the glass, Gravedigger, knows it. Let's go.
He drops to throw. Looking, fires middle of the field, and that ball is picked off! It is picked off by Rayshawn Jenkins! He's running it back along the right sideline! That is going to be a touchdown! That is going to be a touchdown! The Jags are going to win it on a Rayshawn Jenkins pick 6! Are you kidding me? How good is that? Wow! What a finish to this ball game!
Oh, I think we might need to isolate how good is that, Justin, for our podcast going forward.
Okay.
From Frank Frangie, WOKV, Rayshawn Jenkins, have a game, kid. Maron. Jenkins intercepted Dak Prescott's tip pass in overtime, took it to the house, 52 yards, and the Jags stunned the Dallas Cowboys 40-34. This was a Jaguars team down 27-10 in this game, and then it became a big-time back-and-forth affair. Greggy, the Jags, they're coming, and they got a kid QB that's figured some things out as well.
There's a period in every Trevor Lawrence game now that for one quarter he just levitates and just hits target after target in an impossible spot, and that was during this comeback, and not all of them were even caught, and they made it, and I wasn't surprised, but I'm glad you mentioned Jenkins to start it, because the play before the pick 6, Jenkins comes up in a run fit, and he was doing this all day. He ended up, I think you mentioned, with 18 tackles and the 2 interceptions, and he stuffs them on 2nd and 4. Before that, it was the second drive of overtime, so all the Cowboys needed was a field goal, and they had moved the ball well all day. Tony Pollard rips off like a 20-yard run, then they get 10 yards. They're at midfield, and they have a 2nd and 4. Jenkins comes in with the run stop to make it 3rd and 4, and then he does the pick 6 right after that. He also really started this comeback going into overdrive with an interception that people are going to get on Dak Prescott about, and they should. Dak Prescott played a great game otherwise, and it's weird I've seen people blame this. It was literally a great throw that was the pick 6 in overtime. The guy dropped it. It hit him in the bicep on the move. It was a perfect throw. So I'm not blaming Dak Prescott that for all, but there was one moment when the comeback was going on where Dak totally panicked under pressure, threw it up, Jenkins got it, and they caught up quickly. It was one of those comebacks that time was not a factor. They caught up 17 points in no time and took the lead. It was the Cowboys who had to come back and take the lead.
Something about this offense, because it feels like Trevor Lawrence totally connects with someone different every week, and they explode. Like Zay Jones, 3 touchdowns. Zay Jones was essentially on the edge of not having a career a couple of years ago. So it's working. I think this is a massive win for Doug Peterson. This is a team that knocked out the Ravens. They beat the Titans. They got a chance to go against the Jets. And suddenly, who would have looked at that Jets-Jaguars game back in September and said, why on earth is that scheduled for as an island affair late in the season?
Or even a month ago and say, actually, the game, like the Jaguars feel like the more relevant team now.
I mean, we forked the Jaguars.
Woo-wee. Uh-oh.
Well, we were bound
That's a problem.
We were bound to get in trouble with one of them.
Let me check out the standings here after, and we'll get to the Titans, but spoiler alert, it didn't go well here at SoFi. Jaguars are one game out now, and they play each other in Week 18. So it's all there for the Jags to steal this division. It's a team that listen, as a Jets fan, I don't want anything to do with them right now because they're playing with confidence. And let's hear it from Trevor Lawrence because, again, it's not just Lawrence. It's the whole operation, which is vastly improved with Doug Peterson leading the way, better roster, better scheme, and now a young quarterback who's, reaching his potential a little more suddenly than we expected compared to where we were in, say, early October.
Yeah.
Let's listen to Lawrence, who, by the way, looks like the lead singer of the most popular Christian rock band in the world.
I think it's accurate.
All right, let's hear from him.
I don't really care, honestly, what people think. I say that. I do think, it feels good to win a game like this on a big game, national game, like you said, against a great team. It feels good just to, show who we are. So you can't lie. I mean, that feels good to show people that, but it doesn't change anything about us. We're the same group. We lost 5 games straight in October, and everyone wrote us off. So
that's a shot at us.
If you listen to what people say, you're not really in a good spot. So
directly at us.
I think also, Dan, looking at him in the presser there, maybe the fourth Hansen brother that had less theatrical ambition and just decided not to join that group.
The one that played sports instead of went to the garage and wailed on the keyboard.
Well, now we're talking about him.
The ones that's a foot taller and runs a 4.4.
There's a reason he played sports.
40. It's crazy because kind of similar to the Kirk Cousins game, although Lawrence played really well throughout, including in the first half. It was a clean first half, too. He had an interception in the third quarter, which was his first in a long time and was on him. And he fumbled the ball with under a minute and a half left in this game on a wild scramble that appeared to be the moment where the game was lost. All the Cowboys needed to do at that point was get a first down to win, or at least get rid of the Jaguars' timeouts, but they decided to throw the ball on 3rd and 10, kind of a prayer down the field. Mike McCarthy doesn't force him to use that last timeout with the safer play call. And usually I'm for going for it there on some level, but the fact that it was like a deep shot to Noah Brown, like 50 yards down the field, ended up coming in very handy because the Jaguars needed that timeout to force overtime and get the field goal.
Yeah, and I do want, because I'm going to be checking this game out tomorrow, and we have so much to get to today, so we shouldn't really focus on what's coming up next, but I do want to have the conversation at some point this week, Greg, is where are we at on the Cowboys now after 2 so-so games leading into now this loss. And the NFC East is now pretty much gone. At 10-4, and the Eagles are in total control of that division now, even though they still have a head-to-head. So costly loss for the Cowboys, who are probably now going to be a wild card team. And watch out for the Jags, who not only have moved into the in-the-hunt wild card area now themselves, although, a long shot in that department, they can outright win this division. I think they
graduated from berserker category to legitimate title threat in that division.
I think that these Cowboys teams who have had some bad Cowboys vibes over the years of like blowing it at some point have to start being a little worried the way this game ended up. On offense, 4-and-out field goal, interception, 3-and-out punt. Then they get the touchdown, 3-and-out punt, and interception in overtime.
A little
That's
overly
a
familiar
rough way to end a game.
Cowboys fans who have felt a lot of disappointment in December and January in the last quarter century. All right, moving on. How about an NFC team that graduated from berserker to actual playoff participant, possibly? Let's head to the Meadowlands.
Goff's going to throw it. Back and looking. Throws wide open left side. Brock Wright with it to the 30. Brock Wright 25. Brock Wright 20.
Come on.
Comes back to the 10. To the 5. To the end zone. Touchdown Detroit Lions. Oh my. 51 yards. Goff to Brock Wright. And the Lions are back in front. Oh baby, how big is that?
This is the announcers losing their voice week. Go ahead. I opt out of this week.
I'm not going to pretend I wasn't loving seeing that highlight. Are you kidding me?
We'll get to the Patriot game soon.
The Stones. Oh, there was no Patriots game. The only game in town is the Detroit Lions. That was amazing.
I don't know. I've known Dan for over a decade, and I hesitate to dance on his situation, Greg.
You know, you got a real gift for pitch, Greg.
This is a very special honor.
I didn't think we were breaking that out right away.
We always do.
Okay.
And that shows that old Zeuser, Tugboat, he's looking out for the show first and foremost, because that was not a pleasant moment.
Well, you're a showman.
Dan.
You are a showman, Dan, first and foremost.
Well, you know who put on a show? Brock Wright. What? 51-yard touchdown, catch and run on a Jared Goff pass on 4th and inches from midfield with 1:49 to play. Puts the Lions ahead after the Jets were that close to sealing a massive win. And it wasn't over, though, after that play, which made it all the more painful. The Jets get the ball back. Zach Wilson, who had a very up-and-down game here, completes a couple of miracle throws. 3rd and 18, I think they convert. 4th and forever they convert to stay alive, but some really suspect clock management by Robert Saleh, where they had all their timeouts and yet put themselves in a position where they were kicking a 58-yard field goal with 1 second to play that never really had a chance. Greg the Leg pushed it left. So, yes, the Lions escape with the win. I wouldn't say that the Jets outplayed the Lions in this game. I think Detroit overall felt like the better team for most of the game, and then the Jets were able to make some plays and put a drive together in the second half to put them in the lead. And once they had the lead with about 4 minutes to go, you thought, okay, the defense, which, again, this Jet defense, even without Quinnen Williams, was doing really well. So it slowed down the Lions in a lot of areas. They've thrived during this winning streak for the Lions. But in that spot, I got to give credit to Ben Johnson specifically for a play call that had the Jets completely caught off guard at midfield there. That the whole defense followed Amon-Ra St. Brown across on what they thought was going to be either a run or maybe a short drag type pass to the right, and that allowed the backup tight end to sneak out and make the play of the year for the Lions. So it hurts. It stinks for the Jets, but for the Lions, it's another big win for a team that really is everyone's darling.
I mean, they've unlocked a star with Ben Johnson, because I think that was the takeaway from the Vikings win a week ago for Detroit, was that Ben Johnson was just a step ahead in each series, with each play, and then so to see that he tricked out the Jets too. I mean, I would ask you, Zach Wilson may have to start Thursday. I saw one throw, the one where Garrett Wilson was so frustrated after, I think it was the 3rd and 12, where he just totally missed Garrett Wilson. That to me is the kind of throw that in recent weeks, Mike White was making that throw, and that was sort of the difference in their offense and their passing game. Wilson was not at least had a couple big plays. I know some of them seemed a little hokey, but it wasn't. It was just more like a major roller coaster, it seemed like.
It was a roller coaster. I would not say he had a good game at all. He threw for 317 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Like I said, if they get the stop on 4th and inches there before the touchdown by Detroit, everyone's talking about how he made a big throw downfield to Garrett Wilson. Then on 3rd and goal from the half-yard line, he throws the ball to C.J. Uzomah for the go-ahead touchdown. So it's a totally different story. But now that they lose, you can actually be a little more clinical and look at what he did, which was, yes, he hit on some throws downfield, but still way too many misses on throws that have to be made, whether it's a wide-open receiver or a receiver that, they talk about it, NFL open versus college open. Throws that aren't easy, but for a better quarterback, and even for a guy like Mike White, has been money in the bank. So that's what you saw Garrett Wilson. And some of these guys should calm down a little bit about some of the histrionics on the field, because that's, I don't think, necessarily helpful. But what you saw there is that this team, they want Mike White playing.
Yeah.
And the Jets were so desperate to have Mike White playing that, Ian Rappaport reported this morning that he has 3 fractures in his ribs and is going to miss 2 weeks at least. They almost put him on the field in that state. So I think this is Zach Wilson's last stand here, I think, as the Jets quarterback, and this was a very uneven result. And I think if Mike White is healthy, he absolutely will play Thursday, but I think the timing of this matchup, it means we might get Might get the final Zach Wilson start as a Jet.
They did get to Zach Wilson from a PR how to answer questions perspective because they asked him after the game, do you think you should start Thursday? Let's see what he said.
Yep. Yeah. Nice setup, Mark. Oh, that's good.
I think you played well enough to deserve another start.
I like that.
No, I think that's not up to me.
Compute.
And for me, I think it comes back to how can I watch this film? How can I improve? And can I keep trying to put our offense in the best situation to win?
We talked about it on the Friday Fun Show with Claybon. Like, I said he's under a lot of pressure in this game, and Patrick, as Patrick sometimes does, he pushes back on things, and he said pressure isn't a thing. It's just that he's not good. But no, I think there was a lot of pressure beyond the pressure to perform, also to handle that situation. It's just there's been a lot on his shoulders, and he hasn't always been up to the task. But it wasn't all bad, but it certainly wasn't good. It was very up and down.
Well, the crowd was on him, too. I don't care what anyone says. I don't think that feels good when you're a young player. When I watch him, I'm like, I am old because he looks 12 years old to me in that press conference.
He's getting younger?
It's like a little boy with, like, a little eyeshadow under his eyes.
It's a massive step and test pass for the Lions, too, to go east in a cold situation, in a matchup that was basically even. You look at any stats in this game in terms of yards, average per play, certainly the score throughout the game. Like, they each have their strengths and weaknesses, but it doesn't surprise me that these two teams, who came in about it almost as a pick'em, like, played even. And the Lions weirdly haven't won many of those games. They've lost a lot of close games. They've won some blowouts, and it's just sort of another box to check that you don't need the Lions offense to necessarily score 35 every time for them to win. And I know they got helped out by Zach Wilson starting this game, but you get a couple sacks out of Okwara, and Kaminsky gets one. James Houston gets another sack. It's crazy, this rookie pass rusher. And it's like they are getting contributions from a lot of different players, and they're now a half a game behind the final playoff spot. Both them and the Seahawks at 7-7, only half a game back with 3 weeks to go.
And how much one play can change everything. Just like I said, if the Jets get that stop at midfield, everyone's talking about Zach Wilson, perseverance, and leading that drive. If Jared Goff airmails that throw to the tight end and they lose, we're talking about how Jared Goff got found out against the big defense on the road when actually the Cards were down. But since the play call was brilliant and it was a can't-miss throw, he hits it, and the tight end does the rest and saves his numbers, and they win the game. Not a great Goff game, something to keep an eye on now as we really get to the crucible.
And so they have the Panthers, the Bears, and the Packers.
I locked it up.
You did?
Gotta have it Sunday. I
terrible.
had to have my 5-game lock streak.
Shame on you.
Loss has come to an end. I finally got a win.
Why does
Don't you feel good?
Like, literally no one even has a recollection of that. Were we all there when you did this? I guess so.
Congratulations, Justin.
That's
I know
a big effort for you.
You had a personal setback as well with your favorite team.
I did.
So I'm going to give
Also,
you
Sean
this.
Kelly picked this lock for me, so credit to him.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. You got to go to the experts. Go to the sharps. All right, let's take a break, and we'll get to more football. Oh, yes, welcome back. Gotta have it Sunday. Let's keep moving with another game that will not soon be forgotten.
Mac Jones hands it off on a draw to Ramondre Stevenson, breaks out of a tackle at the 50, has the 45, breaks away from another tackle, pitches it backwards, and now Jacoby Myers spinning around. He throws
You're
it
not losing.
to Chandler Jones in midfield, and a sniffle! Chandler Jones racing towards the end zone.
Oh.
He scores!
Another cracking voice.
My goodness! I can't believe what I just saw. On the first night of Hanukkah, it's a miracle in Las Vegas.
I love
A lot going on there.
Wow, I did not see the Hanukkah plug.
Yeah,
Put that in the best calls of the year, please.
I did not see that coming. The call there is by Jason Horowitz. There you go.
Can you really say I can't believe what I just saw?
I can't
Has
believe
that
that
In this
one.
case,
I guess.
yeah.
I feel slightly trademarked to me, but fair enough.
KRLV Horowitz in a big spot with the call. Chandler Jones, the former Patriot, probably no love lost between him and Bill Belichick, to be the one just standing near midfield, minding his own business as everybody in the building, players, coaches, 50, 60, 70,000 people in attendance getting ready for overtime. And Jacoby Myers throws the ball up for grabs. Chandler Jones catches it, stiff arms Mac Jones into Middle Earth, and then scores in stunning fashion. Final score 30-24, Raiders over Pats. Unbelievable. We now welcome in the great Nick Shook. The Raiders 6-8 and probably still they're in the hunt. Whether we want to believe it or not, they at 6-8 they're still there. And the Pats in a crushing fashion fall to 7-7. I don't think. Have you ever seen anything like this, Shooky? High school, Pop Warner, college.
No, I've seen it all now. I think this is where I call it a career. I'm going to move on now, guys, and ride off into the sunset of retirement because this is never going to be topped in stupidity, in unlikelihood, in the fact that he stiff-armed not just anybody, but the quarterback, like you said, into Middle Earth, sent him through the turf at Allegiant Stadium. Just a remarkable finish. I don't think you can say I don't believe what I just saw, but I truly did not believe what I saw today.
I mean, so Chandler Jones wound up with more yards after the catch than any pass catcher in this game, which says something about the offenses. But at least, and the one thing that kind of bubbled up as the game ended is people saying this is the stupidest thing that Bill Belichick has ever done. It's the most un-Bill Belichickian strategy at the end of a game.
He didn't do it, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. Bill Belichick not calls. Jacoby Myers did at least say, I mean, I'm glad that they got the interview quickly, but that he just didn't see Chandler Jones there. Whether he did or not, this was not a Patriots plan here, Nick.
Wait, can I just say something?
No.
Did it
you're the
seem
host,
like,
so please.
Well, no, I was going to say, does it... What's the thing that was the most stunning to me immediately in the seconds after? And by the way, Greg's fandom might be RIP because I'm standing next to him, and he's just standing there. And I could see him computing all his different picks and like, who did he lock up in this thing? What did he do in his game day
He's
picks?
on a break.
Like, did I cover the spread in this thing? And I'm just like,
that's not
what
true.
What happened to this guy?
I picked the Raiders in this game, and this.
I know,
Patriots
and I can see it on your face, and it's just
deserves
like
a dirt nap because they're so sloppy, and the ending will that'll be the focus, and it should be the focus, but they're just a bad team, and so I'm fine with them taking a
losing
dirt
fans
nap.
left and right on this show, so that's the problem.
I'm alone on an island. There's Shooky, the Browns fan still, but I have to say, do the Patriots not know that game's tied there? That's what to me really was the most stunning part of it. And maybe there is coaching. You can't say, oh, this is Bill Belichick's fault. But yes, all this criticism around New England about maybe this coaching staff is in over its head. And you've seen a lot of uncharacteristic mental errors all season by this team. You saw a block punt in this game where the guy on the edge for the Raiders was untouched on the block punt. A huge bust by New England special teams. This is just stuff you can't ignore some of this, Nick.
Yeah, and you see, Mac Jones getting frustrated week after week with the offense and the fact that they can't move the football consistently. It's very unlike them. It's unprofessional. It's just untidy, and it's not like the Patriots. But again, you're right. They had to know. They had to not know that the game was tied. This is J.R. Smith in the NBA Finals all over again.
They did know because they called
the clock.
They knew because they called a draw. They didn't call that. That's at least what the players are saying, unless they're really trying to cover for the coaches. They said, no, they just called a draw, go to overtime. Ramondre actually gets a big gain on it and just in the moment decides to lateral it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on those two players.
Jacoby takes it to it. So sometimes you don't need that much crazy analysis of it. It was just like a beautifully insane play that two players made mental errors on. But the rest of the game, where there's 13 penalties by the Patriots at pre-snap, and Mac Jones throws for 112 yards. They had 31 dropbacks for 112 yards. Like, that's on them. That's on them playing.
Right. And this is a game. This is like 5 games in one, but this is a game the Raiders, after that block punt and then they scored touchdown right before the half, they are up 17-3. They're once again up 14 points, 13 or more points at halftime, and immediately gag it all away and give up 21 points in the fourth quarter. Derek Carr, this gets totally lost now, Shooky, leads the team on a long drive connecting on a touchdown pass that was very close and probably was an incomplete pass with a toe on the out-of-bounds line, but there wasn't enough evidence. They kicked the extra point, which sets up the madness that we saw. Do you want to hear from Josh McDaniels, who, by the way, on the top of everything else, this was him against the master, the pupil against master.
Right.
I didn't see the midfield handshake on this one, but that had to be a little bit weird for Bill. Here's McDaniels after the game.
Don't get tackled by the quarterback. I mean, literally, I just was thinking it was obviously very I don't know what the word would be, but I was once Ramondre pitched the ball to Jacoby, I figured we'd probably just tackle whoever had it, and then that would be it. We'd go to overtime, and then when he lateraled the ball, I had no idea. It didn't seem like a lateral play to me. You know what I mean? When they handed the ball off to the back. So when
He's
they
even
handed it to
covering
the
for
back,
Belichick.
I thought, okay, tackle him, go to overtime. And then when I saw the ball up in the air, and then I saw Chandler underneath it, I'm thinking, oh my God, we might have a chance at this. And then when he caught it, I saw Mac was back there, and just hoping that he could avoid, whatever effort that Mac had to tackle him, and then hopefully had enough juice left in his body to get to the end zone.
So I watched the hug, Dan, and it was got to be the worst 2 seconds of Bill Belichick's week. Was waiting for Josh McDaniels and Mac Jones to stop their embrace as Josh McDaniels is telling him like a lot about things like life, offenses, probably like stick with it, all this stuff. They're embracing, and Belichick is just standing there next to him waiting for McDaniels to be done. Then he gives him a quick hug and leaves.
It's better than the last time they faced each other.
Tough situation.
They faced each other in 2009 when McDaniels was the Broncos coach,
Right.
and that was the team that started, it was 2009 or 10. They started 6-0, and there were shots of after they beat the Patriots, Josh McDaniels running around the stadium, pumping his fist.
Oh, I remember
then
that.
They
caught heat for that. I
right.
remember
Then
that.
they just lost. That the floor fell out, and he never did it again.
How about this Raiders season in general? I mean, this has got to be going down as one of the most bizarre. It might not end with anything. It probably won't. It's probably an 8-9 team or whatever it's going to be. But almost every game is memorable and, quite frankly, bonkers.
Memorable for their bad reasons, usually. The fact that they blow so many leads. And
but they've
offense,
had a few go the other way now in the last month.
Yeah, their offense, they can't get to Devontae Adams in the second half. That's consistently a problem for them. But yeah, it's been a bonkers season. At one point this season, I was saying they're probably like the best 1-4, 1-5 team, whatever they were in the history of football that just couldn't get the job done, but had way more talent than their record indicated. But now at this point, they are a 6-8 team because they make so many mistakes. It's just that this time around, it paid off for them.
And, it was not a great Sunday for Zeuser and got knocked out of my fantasy playoffs. That's not pleasant either. But then I remembered after this, right as we were coming to the studio, Scott Zolak had to react to this on live radio. So let's check in the Ascension Powerade bottle with his partner, Bob Sochi, I believe, reacting to an insane play by the Patriots.
Jones will give it to Stevenson. He started to run. He runs it up the middle, hit by Chandler. Jones slips and hit across the 45 with a stiff arm. Off a tackle at the 40. He lost the football. And Jacoby Myers picks it up. He circles back and he throws it across the field. Jones is picked up by Chandler Jones. He breaks away to the 30. He runs to the 20. He runs to the 10. He runs to the end zone. Unreal. Touchdown. Raiders.
Good night. This might be one of the dumbest teams I've ever seen.
And a victory for Las Vegas.
I don't know what to say. This is a heads roll type freaking play right here. Oh my God.
Zolak never thought he was going to sign up for negative times.
Oh, did he just insinuate Bill Belichick should be fired?
No, I think it's definitely the lieutenants under Bill Belichick, but
I've seen enough little reports popping up that there will be pressure on Bill Belichick to change those lieutenants.
Yes.
And you can be sure Bill Belichick is aware who is putting out these little bubbles because it's the only person above him or people above him in the organization.
I needed that.
Ugly. Well, I thought Bob Sochi had a great call.
He
Very
did a really
professional.
Good job. Definitely.
And that was, I think, Zolak.
Jackpot, baby!
Zolak.
Musburger would have been great on the call, too. But Horowitz came in hard with a Hanukkah hit, and that's memorable as well.
It was all beautiful.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, Nick, no more calling this uncharacteristic of the Patriots. It's actually been 3 years. This is the Patriots post-Brady. I just mean they're heavily penalized and they're inefficient and make big mistakes. Like, they've been one of the most heavily penalized teams a couple years running. Like, this is who they are. It's not
how about the Jonnu
Smith
Smith penalty on fourth and goal?
How about, you can't get the Raiders have given up 32 straight first and goal touchdowns. The Patriots have a second and goal at the 1, and they choose to throw a couple passes, and they don't get a
They also
touchdown.
got a pick six to open the third quarter. They had shut down the Raiders for most of the second half, and then things got insane.
But we're openly rooting for them to not make the playoffs, not because they're the Patriots, because they're an eyesore.
Well, speak for yourself. Some people for both reasons.
Sure, but I'm comfortable with the latter camp.
Right. Shook, you want to hang around for another game here?
Absolutely.
Let's go to a game that did make it to overtime, and I think everybody was kind of surprised it did.
Mahomes hands it off to McKinnon, trying to dart left. 25-20, downfield block. 10-5, touchdown!
Kansas City! Terrific run by Jerick McKinnon to win the game in overtime. And the Kansas City Chiefs have won the AFC West for a 7th consecutive year.
7 years in a row. Mitch Holthus with a call, WDAF. Jerick McKinnon, he is a player. 26-yard touchdown run in OT. Chiefs get 3 touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes. 30-24 over a game Texans team, which is fighting hard for Lovie Smith down the stretch here. Mark, I'll start with you on this one. Why was this game an overtime contest at all? Like, how did this happen today? Because I think everybody expected this to be a total blast job by Kansas City.
Andy Reid summed it up well. He said it was a weird game, and it was. I think it was just an example of the Chiefs being a little bit off, and they've been a little bit off on offense for stretches. And then when you throw in mistakes, you get a game like this. This wasn't the Texans really stretching their legs here and showing us that they're turning into something more powerful. It was that you got an Isaiah Pacheco fumble at the Kansas City 17 that set up a Davis Mills touchdown, helped them go up 14-0. There was a touchdown drive before the half, but Harrison Butker missed the PAT. So that's 14-13 going into half for Kansas City. Juju Smith-Schuster had a big fumble that led to another Texans touchdown that put him up 21-16. And then Harrison Butker, who we've been so used to seeing reliably nailing kicks from all over the place, missed a 51-yard field goal with seconds to go that put it into overtime, Nick. But the Chiefs also had Patrick Mahomes completing 19 straight passes at one point. It's like when they're bad, their version of bad is better than anyone else's version of bad. It made it close, but were you ever really in doubt that they were going to take this thing?
I was surprised it got to overtime. I wasn't entirely surprised that Butker missed that kick. He's another guy that's just kind of been off this year in general. You kind of saw it with the PAT that he missed as well, like you mentioned. But it's still the Chiefs. They still move the football, and I like that they're actually getting their ground game kind of going a little bit with Pacheco, and then Jerick McKinnon making a difference in the ground and through the air. It's 2 straight weeks where those two have combined for over 120 yards or actually I think it was close to 200 yards of offense the last 2 weeks, including today. So that part is encouraging, but you're right. They're not at their full form yet. They're not hitting their stride entirely right now, which is fine because you still won the AFC West and you still win this game. It's just that for the last 2 weeks, they've taken, teams that they should be beating. They've had them take them almost to the wire in each game and had to really earn them at the end. And that's just a little concerning.
You don't see many overtime games where it's 502 yards to 219.
Well, the Texans averaged 3.6 yards per play. So that wasn't a Houston thing as much as
there were special teams, but
they got
short field.
They got the ball at the 17. Fumbles. They got the ball deep in Chiefs territory on the second touchdown. To your point on Jerick McKinnon, a little fantasy nug. Mm-hmm. He has 30-plus PPR points in 2 straight games.
Whoa.
The only 2 running backs to do that all year have been Josh Jacobs and Austin Eckler. So McKinnon has fit in really well.
Nice fantasy nug.
Hashtag league
from the
winner.
Fantasy corner.
From the corner. But Pacheco's an interesting part for this offense, too. I think he runs the ball differently than any Chiefs back we've seen in a while.
Can I tell you the Chiefs are 11-3. They're obviously in great position as they jostle with Buffalo for that top seed. I don't put too much into, they were a little sluggish against the Rams a few weeks back. The Broncos, that game was closer than it should have been. This Texans game now, this feels like a team that's been doing this for so long now that they're just grinding through the rest of the schedule. They're going to get their 13 wins or so, maybe 14 wins, and then they're going to be ready to cook when it matters in a big spot in January. So they're checking boxes and trying to stay healthy.
It reminds me of Buffalo because their slump, they never lost during their slump.
Yeah. Samesies. All right. Shooky, thank you very much, my friend. And, well, if we don't see you before the holidays, Merry Christmas.
Oh, thanks to you guys as well. Thanks for having me as always. Happy holidays, and start celebrating Hanukkah, as I just found out started today.
Yeah,
there we
Horowitz
go.
was all over it. Now we all know.
Spot. The Shook family, that got to be a fun Christmas. He's got like 17 cousins and siblings and all over.
Got to be a lot of Miller Lite being ingested. That's
a very beefy crowd.
Plenty. You know my favorite there. Thank you.
A lot of Boggs Light. All right. See you later, buddy. All right, let's keep rolling. A lot to get to. Let's head across the sidewalk to SoFi Stadium, where the Chargers were looking to solidify their wild card spot, and the Titans were looking to get things calmed down. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Locking up against the
This will be a 43-yard kick from the right hash.
Uh-oh, there he is.
Snap. Kick is up, and it is good.
Voice crack. Come on, money.
Oh, Cameron Dicker puts the Bolts up 3 with 4 seconds to go. What a drive.
Money's voice is never cracked, so on the day where all the announcers are amped up and frying their vocal cords with screams from the booth, Money, the great professional, cannot be undone. Money with Jeremiah in there somewhere. KYSR on the call. Let's get some Kicker Club music in here.
Ooh.
For Dicker the Kicker. Dicker the Kicker, for a team, the Chargers, who have long struggled to have any type of, trust in the guy that, as we all know, and why they're celebrated on this podcast, have such a huge role in getting teams to playoffs and separate 7-9s from 9-7s or 9-8s from 8-9s. Dicker, he's been doing it all year long, and he did it again there at the gun, allowing the Chargers to move past the Titans, a 17-14 win. Those Chargers are now 8-6, and Mark, the Titans keep losing, now 7-7 and only a game up on the Jags.
I feel for them in this one because you have Ryan Tannehill and an offense that's struggling all game on third down. They've been awful on third down all year. And it came down to a last stand for Ryan Tannehill. Was playing on a messed up ankle. He left the game for a while early, had to go have it heavily taped, and just refused to come out. Like, he's just we just get this every week. There's some example of why I think he's the toughest quarterback in the AFC. Other people have other standards that are higher than him. That's who he is. He made a couple of key throws when they were down 14-7 with less than 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Chigokonkwo, Austin Hooper, Derrick Henry had a big run, and then Henry got stuffed, and then Tanny barreled in for the tying touchdown, and you thought, what? The Tennessee has worked their way out of this dark corner they're in, but they left Justin Herbert.
They might go for 2 there to take the lead.
They could have. I mean, they didn't, but they left Justin Herbert too much time, and he got to work. It was the Herbert from last week on this last drive. A 16-yarder to Mike Williams, a 6-yarder to Gerald Everett, and an insane on-the-move throw to Mike Williams, who is, Greg, I know you mentioned this on the Thursday show, that he's just doing things down the field that other wide receivers are not. And we used to see it in flashes. He's now doing it regularly. That went to the Tennessee 20. They spiked the ball. Then they got a weird delay of game. And this is why this was happening right when that Raiders thing was happening. Right. And down in our newsroom, everyone's I'm on tape delay on Game Pass at my desk, and everyone's ahead. And I thought, wait a minute, Dicker's lining up for this after the delay of game kick. He must have missed this thing. People are going crazy. Then I see the Chandler Jones thing, and I see Dicker hitting the kick, and the game is over. Sense, yeah. But it really kills me, and we should bring in Gravedigger. It kills me for the Titans because their defense today, I thought, played one of the best games they have played all year. Joshua Kalu, what he did when he blew up DeAndre Carter on a big run. Guys like DeMarcus Walker, Roger McCrary, who had a tipped interception leaping out of bounds to Kalu, which is one of the
best interception I've ever seen in my life.
I have to say it absolutely was. It was like an orchestrated volleyball play.
Yeah,
and you just thought
it was like a cricket play.
I thought the Titans were just going to find a way to do this. So I can't imagine what it was like for you to be in the stadium, which was very loud today. I'll give the Chargers fans credit.
Mark wanted some validation after jumping on the Titans bandwagon. This was going to be his time.
Well, no, I feel bad for our producer.
As Mark alluded to there, Justin did go across the sidewalk and attended this game, and he's a pro because he's back in the studio now.
I got Robert Woods' glove.
Oh, how?
Can you believe that?
Wait, you're a go by the tunnel guy and
no,
wave your hands?
Does he know you have it?
I had to leave the game at 4 o'clock, 3 minutes left in the game before the Titans completed their comeback.
Oh, wow.
Randy Chavez was also in the stadium randomly.
Randy. Love that
with
dude.
Tickets by the tunnel, and he got this and gave it to me.
What a good
what
dude.
What an amazing, cool thing.
Also, Robert Woods hasn't really needed those gloves this year, so...
We were kind of joking that they're a little small, actually.
Does it smell normally?
I did not give it a whiff. I'm not really curious. I think there was a turning point in this game. The Titans missed a 51-yard field goal, which, you were just saying, Dan, the reason we played it for Cameron Dicker here, by the way, hook him, is that this is the difference between a 7-9 or 9-7 team. Like, Randy Bullock has missed a potential game-winning field goal early in the year for the Titans. That could be a huge win when it comes down to the standings. And then a 51-yarder, which, 51's not automatic, but there are some teams who have kickers where 51 yards is automatic, and the Titans certainly do not.
Like 0 wins SoFi.
Well, exactly. I mean, he should be able to hit a 51. I mean, NFL kickers these days, 51 yards is
I hit a 30-yard field goal at SoFi Stadium at the holiday party last year.
Maybe you should kick for the Titans.
Let's make that kick is what I'm saying.
On that sequence,
for him at least.
The Titans end up in their 1st and 10 at the Chargers' 25-yard line, and they end up kicking a 51-yard field goal because they lose 8 yards from there and get a 4th and 18. After a 2nd and 16 following a Tannehill sack, they run the ball 2nd and 16 for 7 yards. You're at 3rd and 9, back to the 24-yard line. I'm thinking just be safe, run the ball, and kick a manageable field goal. Titans call another pass play, give up another sack, 2 sacks in 3 plays, pushes them back, makes it a 51-yard field goal. If they just stay conservative there, you have a chance to... I know.
That's all part of what they are, which is a terrible offensive line. Not many offensive lines have made the Chargers pass rush look fearsome this year. And it comes down at the end, I think, to the Chargers have Justin Herbert who can make that throw at the end. Yeah. And almost every team in the league doesn't. And going into these last 2 weeks, we were talking about Sean Payton's going to take this Chargers job. And I said these 2 weeks could decide Brandon Staley's career here. Dolphins, Titans back-to-back because the schedule gets easier now. He ends up finding a way to win them both. Good defense, timely Herbert plays. And now they have, according to the projections, most out there, the playoff projections, a 70+% chance because they're the 6th seed at 8-6 and their schedule's easy.
I would also say the Titans get in their own way because I was counting they are the worst 3rd down team in the league. They had the most 3 and outs. They were 1 for 9 today, I believe. They had multiple 3rd and 2 scenarios where Derrick Henry's not even on the field. I get that we know it's going to go to Derrick Henry if he is, but you're putting Tannehill in a situation where he's got to complete throws, and he had a bunch of wayward scenarios on 3rd down.
Well, he's trying to target Robert Woods on a quick out where
it's not working.
Asante Samuel Jr. all over him. It's not open. He's trying to throw to Chigakwanko on the sideline. Kyle Van Noy in coverage, doing a great job. It's not open. He's I think the Titans' offense is one of the worst in the NFL. I kind of feel like Gregg feels about the Patriots right now, where I'm just this Titans team doesn't deserve to make the playoffs.
They got a lot of work to do.
It's not Tannehill's fault, though.
The Jaguars are playing right now much better football.
The Jags, the Chargers, and I'll throw the Jets in. I'm putting the Dolphins into it. That makes the best playoffs. So if we're shuffling in the Chargers and the Jags for the Titans and let's say the Patriots, that's just a more entertaining product.
Yeah, it's more fun. The Titans are one of the most boring teams to watch, and their offense is terrible.
And it's happened so quickly, this flip that's happened in the AFC South, that it no longer feels stunning if the Jaguars take this thing. They do have the Texans next week, but it's
the way the Texans are playing
well,
right now, I don't think the Titans are going to win that game.
You're in a lot of trouble, buddy.
It really did. There. I mean, it did turn on a dime the moment Mark jumped off the bandwagon.
Yeah, but I've now been thrown off the bandwagon, so you can't. It was nice to blame me for it. The team actually has issues. You can't just blame some guy in Los Angeles talking about football.
Good point, Mark. Let's take a break, and we'll continue on. All right, I'd like to avoid this, but we can't. The NFC South. We got to dig into it.
Okay.
Let's start with the team that everybody thought was going to cruise to the title, and today it looked like they might have gotten themselves figured out, but guess what? They still stink. Bucs, Bengals. Let's go.
Chase out to the left. Burrow looking, his throw caught by Chase. Heads for the end zone. Touchdown! Bengals. Joe Burrow with his 3rd touchdown pass of the second half.
Unbelievable. Burrow would add a 4th touchdown pass later in the game. The final touches in a 34-23 win over the Bucs for the Bengals. A game, gentlemen, that had Tampa Bay up 17-0 with about a minute to play in the second quarter. Bengals kick a field goal and then score 31 points in the second half as they continue their to just cruise through this section of their schedule. Greggy, the Bengals flexing their muscles now up to 10-4.
It felt anything like a cruise, though. I don't know what to do with this game. It was so strange that they were down 17-0.
And dead in the water.
Late in the second half, hadn't moved the ball at all. It was clearly the best half of football the Bucs had played overall all season, I would say. On both sides of the ball, they were fantastic. Brady was really sharp. Cincinnati gets 3 before halftime, but you don't think that's big a deal. And then it just becomes a turnover fest. 4 straight possessions, one on a fake punt where Gio Bernard didn't appear to know the play call. It would have gotten him the yard,
brutal.
and they snap it right to his helmet. So that gives the Bengals the ball in field goal position, but they don't get anything. Again, the Bucs stand up, and it's still 17-6 at that point. And then the next 4 possessions, bad interception by Brady, touchdown for the Bengals. Fumble, I believe that one was by Brady too. The pressure got there quickly, but I think Brady will be mad at himself for fumbling that ball, for either not getting the ball rid of the ball quickly and throwing it away on 3rd down, or not securing it. Obviously, his offensive line was not playing well. He didn't have Tristan Wirfs in this game, and Donovan Smith then left later in the game. They fumble again the next possession, and then Brady throws another interception on a pass where it hit him in the arm the next possession. So all 4, the Bengals have the ball in Bucs territory to start their possession, and they clean up with 3 touchdowns and a field goal, and suddenly the game was over. And at no point did it feel like, hey, the Bengals have solved everything offensively, but it didn't matter. They have something special about them as a team that when they fall down, they make the big plays, and guys like Trey Flowers and Logan Wilson are making huge plays. They're without their top 2 defensive ends because Sam Hubbard left and Trey Hendrickson was already out, and it's it doesn't matter. Someone steps up for this team. That's a sign of an awesome team.
Yeah, I thought they found another way to win, and sure, the Brady fumble gave them the ball at the Tampa Bay 13. They got it at the 39 when Fournette fumbled. But I thought there was this other big play, Dan. We were watching this when Burrow, weaving backwards on a 4th down play,
pivotal, yeah,
and gets sacked for a 27-yard loss. A very un-Burrow-like operation right there. But the play is called back by holding, and seconds later, he's hitting T. Higgins for a 5-yard touchdown, and they've scored in a 2-point conversion to Tyler Boyd. They scored 20 unanswered points. And at that point, it's just oh, wait, the Bucs were great for this half, and it was a very unusual thing to watch because they've been such a mess and such a tough watch. But then they shifted back into who they were, and I think that's who the second half is who the Bucs are for most of this season.
And I think I tweeted about it. Tony Romo, I don't know if it's because he's a Tom Brady, he's a contemporary when he was a player. He's obviously, and the respect you obviously have for a man like Tom Brady, but you could tell Romo wants Brady and the Bucs to figure things out. And in that first half, Tony was just over his heels, with the praise of the Bucs that this is the best they've looked. And, he was right, though. That's why this is, I think, as disappointing as any loss all season there's been for the Bucs, because you get to this point of the season where you're 6-7 and you're playing the defending AFC champions and you're kicking their butts, and it's late in the second quarter, and you're thinking to yourself as you go to that locker room, even after you give up the last field goal, all right, everything's still in front of us. We can win this bad division, and if we can get our personnel right, and all of a sudden Chris Godwin's looking better, and Mike Evans is on the same page with Brady, maybe we can make a season of it. I don't think there's any way that this team can wake up tomorrow morning and think they're anything else than just also
isn't it just flipped from their other games where they're horrid for 3 quarters, then Tom Brady has the big comeback for 1 quarter. It happened early, but this is a team that rarely plays 60 minutes of football. They'll give you 21, 22. It has a lot to do with the coaching.
This one felt fluky just because so many turnovers in a row. But Bowles feels how you feel, Dan. After the game, he said, we got to keep fighting. We understand what we're doing is not good enough. By far, it's not even close. We've got 3 games left to try to save our season. When was the last time you heard of a team who's in sole possession of first place with 3 games left of the season saying we've got 3 games left to save our season?
How many times in recent history has a team been 6-8 and they're in sole possession? They're kind of in uncharted territory, but I don't think that sounds like a team that doesn't believe in itself, and they shouldn't, because they're not very good. And we keep on thinking they could be good, but they've given us so much evidence now for 3 months that they ain't.
They're the NFC's Titans.
Right, and it was a mature and resourceful game by the Bengals, although I think they'll be a little concerned. They averaged 3.8 yards per play on the day. They never got the ground game going. They couldn't find it. They couldn't buy an explosive play from Burrow. It was a strange game, but they've learned how to win in any situation.
So got to have it Sunday. The Bucs didn't have to have it. They were going to be in first place no matter what, even if they lost. Who locked it?
I locked it, and so did the West brothers. Sweating it out a little bit early.
Okay.
Actually, wait, no, I should have played that once. I forgot. Mark was thinking about changing his lock, but he stuck with the Niners. It was just Greg. Westbro's locked the Commanders.
Glad I did.
Great.
So
good. All right, let's move to another NFC South matchup, a gotta-have-it game for the Falcons with their new quarterback, Desmond Ridder, and the Saints, who just needed a win to get into the, well, not into the hunt. They don't do that for the division race, but in this division, nothing makes sense.
And a Cincinnati low snap, looks to throw, does throw, complete across the middle, ball's loose, ball's loose, and the Saints have it, the Saints have it. He was hit by Justin Evans, who was complete to Drake London, and Evans hit him, and if they say that that's not a complete, I'm jumping out of this box.
You never know. By the way, they said it was complete, so Mike Haas did not jump out of the box for WWL because Justin Evans stripped Drake London. It was the defining play in a 21-18 win for the Saints over the Falcons, who did not get a boost, it doesn't appear so, from Desmond Ridder in his first start. So as bad as the Saints have been this year, they're 5-9 and still have a pulse in this division. And the Falcons dropped to 5-9, and they've had many chances to try to stake their claim to this division, but just another L.
I hate to say, after beating the drum for Desmond Ridder for so long, that my biggest takeaway from this game is the Falcons would probably win if Marcus Mariota.
Oh no, that is a damning indictment of any quarterback.
I mean, just because Ridder played, one of the bottom 10 games by a quarterback, I would say, in the league this year.
Maybe now we know why the head coach did not want to play him.
And they still almost
none
won.
of you've seen this guy. I've seen him.
I've always wondered about that, because you would think Mariota would have been taken out of the lineup before this, but it was like, you guys don't understand what's going on in practice.
Maybe Mariota was so mad I'm getting bent. I don't know. Ridder showed some things, certainly in college and in the preseason, but he was confused. He ended up 13 for 26 for 97 yards, and that was after tacking on a couple throws at the end. You just couldn't shoot straight. Basically, anytime they dropped back to pass, felt like they were doing the Saints a huge favor. The Falcons were able to run the ball, including Ridder, who had 6 for 38. They had 231 on the ground. Tyler Allgeier was out there looking like Peyton Hillis. We gotta hear from this committee, because this is Mark's guy. It was Mark's guy. It's been 6 to 8 weeks,
it's
right?
It's funny you should say, because
okay.
I did get a voicemail during work today.
Okay.
Hello, my name is, Ted Becker. I'm calling from the My Guy committee. I'm attempting to reach one Marc Sessler about running back for the Atlanta Falcons, Tyler Allgeier. I'm sorry, I've never pronounced this name. Tyler Allgeier is officially your guy.
Hey!
I would also like to apologize. It seems that this request was put in some time ago, and we've just been backed up. We've had a lot of absences lately. People coming into the office, giving everybody the flu. Just crazy. I myself have had it 3 times in the last 2 months, and quite frankly, I feel a tickle in the back of my throat already. So,
Ted.
Anyway, Tyler Allgeier is your guy now, Mr. Steven Sessler, and feel free to use that title for that player in conversation, either in media or out of media. But not in print. That was not approved. I think you need to refile for that. Unfortunately, There's a time limit on that, and there's a tickle in the back of my throat. Oh God! Wow! There it comes.
I feel.
What a victory for you.
For Ted. It is a victory.
You've taken some L's lately. This is nice.
I was not expecting that.
This happens almost every episode. There's a point in every episode. It's like you need to watch the YouTube version of this show, or wherever you get this program, because for the first 20 seconds of Ted Becker's call, Mark's face was as tight and angry as you can imagine, because he thought the Charlie Brown moment was coming. But no, Mark, you got your guy.
Well, I held out a long time. I was prepared to critique that corporate office for basically the guy on the phone, Ted Schneebly or whatever his name was. Ted Becker, and his entire presentation. But it's worked out well. Tyler Allgeier, 17 carries, 139 yards, a touchdown, 8.2 yards per carry.
Too. Everything was after contact. He was running.
He leads
over
all
dudes.
rookies with rushing yards over expected. He is a special player. And he is my guy.
We haven't mentioned the Saints
Officially.
yet. Yeah, the Saints are now 1 game back. You do think about that comeback the Bucs had on Monday Night Football and think how the Saints would be in first place, sole possession, if not.
Well, they
for
look
that.
like a first place team.
No, they don't. They got up 14-0.
This division stinks.
It's so bad.
Right,
they got up 14-0 quickly and then did what they could to almost blow it. If you're a Saints fan, though, I think you're at least happy. Juwan Johnson is one of the most improved players I've ever seen in my life. Was a wide receiver.
He's having a big year.
Now a tight end.
7 touchdowns now.
Rashid Shaheed, every time he touches the ball, it's a 60-plus yard touchdown. And Chris Olave, another nice, smooth game. So at least they have some fun offensive pieces. That's about it for this game.
All right. Did we cover all the teams in the NFC South? I don't think
No, we've got one more next, in fact.
I do want to say, though, this is the first time since the first ever game between Saints and Falcons that the Saints now owe the all-time lead in this rivalry, 54-53. What a day.
You are on the beat of this rivalry, if anyone ever has been.
That is good to know. Thank you, Greg. Yes, there's one more team in the division, another team booting an opportunity to make a play and get to January relevance. It was the Carolina Panthers welcoming the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, let's see what Mitch does. He goes up over the top. Touchdown, Mitch Trubisky. And for Mitch, his second of the year rushing.
That's the way to go, Mitch Trubisky. Take that ball in your own hands and then pound it in. Get it across that goal line. That's a great job of leading the way.
That reminds me of who was the character in The Office? The woman who eventually married Michael Scott. She took over for Toby in HR. And
Holly Flax.
Yeah, Holly. And Holly thought someone had wrongly told her that Kevin Malone had intellectual disability. And so she was being really nice to him every time. But it was Kevin doesn't have any issues like that. And it just led to a little comic
like a true Mr. F.
disconnect there. And that's the way it sounds like these announcers. Like, great job, Mitch. I'm really proud of you there, buddy. Getting over that line. But Mitch Trubisky, he went into this game knowing full well that maybe a lot of people in his locker room didn't even want him on the field. Everybody is really into Mason Rudolph in Pittsburgh for whatever reason, and there was some heat about him playing in this game with Kenny Pickett out with the concussion. But Trubisky played. And he played pretty well for Mitch Trubisky, including the reason I chose that play specifically in the 24-16 win for the Steelers over the Panthers was the final play of a 21-play, 91-yard touchdown drive by the Steelers to start the third quarter that chewed up about 12 minutes of the clock. You don't see too many of those, and it kind of, for a game that Pittsburgh really controlled for most of the game, this was the game that it was most typified what we saw down in Charlotte, where the Carolina Panthers had some momentum, and you thought they had a chance really to make a move and find their way to first place in this bad division. But the Steelers, as they've been doing for the most part now for the last 5 or 6 weeks, they're showing that they're a team that can play, and they can win games, and they might keep that 500 streak going for Mike Tomlin.
Their offense has improved bit by bit consistently for 5 or 6 weeks. And, I think if you look at one of the major discredits to this team early on was the offensive line, and they've been better. And Pat Meyer, the offensive line coach, is someone that was on the hot seat, I think, heading into the season, and everyone's improved a little bit. And it didn't fall off entirely with Trubisky. I have to ask you one little question about this game, though. I read that this is maybe one of my favorite things. I'm just going to read what I read. Steelers linebacker Marcus Allen just made an incomprehensible error, getting called for unsportsmanlike conduct for going into the Panthers huddle on their sideline while Carolina faced 4th and 27. What was this?
I've never seen anything like it. It was a timeout was called before this play, and you just see him, and you have the replay. He just wanders over to the far sideline and just inserts himself into the huddle of the Panthers and is talking ish.
And it's an automatic first down. They were going to punt.
They scored a touchdown after that. And I was thinking, if the Steelers lose this game, that's like an all-time
And they had
penalty.
another, I'm trying to think who the other one was on. They had another unsportsmanlike conduct foul earlier in that game. And I was just thinking to myself, like, Mike Tomlin is going to be cracking some skulls if they end up losing this game. But they didn't. And on the Panthers side, Sam Darnold, it was a very Darnold-esque performance. He's done well in terms of protecting the football for the most part, although he did have a fumble in this game. But the offense was a little bit just stagnant in general. They struggle to score points here, and that's going to continue. You need the defense to be great, and they weren't great in this game. And part of the reason was Deontay Johnson absolutely killed the Carolina secondary in this game with so many big catches, including big throws down near the end, and give Trubisky credit for that as well.
Well, he was the guy who said he wanted Mason Rudolph to play, Deontay Johnson, and Trubisky fed him 10 for 98.
Yeah, and the Steelers had a 13-minute edge at time of possession. They converted 12 of 16 third down opportunities, and that's when Deontay did a lot of his damage. So there you go. The Steelers continue to get better. The Panthers are, just the team in the NFC South, which
that was
means
the Marc Sessler drive of the year.
I just thought that was the coolest thing that's happened all season.
Excited.
Were you jealous that I had it?
I mean, I still have access to watch it.
He does have his 17 windows.
In real time?
He has 7
in real
windows
time, I
open,
was burning with envy. But I do watch all the games at the same time on this.
Can we go just quickly big picture? Pittsburgh's 13th in the AFC at 6-8. They're kind of in it. I mean, they're really not in it, but they're 2 back with 3 to play, so they're that much in it. If Indianapolis had won that game, we would have 14 AFC teams still alive. But there's so many of these 6-8 teams. Jacksonville, who has a better chance because they're in division race, and then Las Vegas, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Maybe one of those 3 teams goes total berserker and gets to 9 wins and
can I just say
gives them a shot.
That's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's not good that 5 and 8 teams are alive going into Week 16.
The NFL wouldn't agree with that.
I know they wouldn't, but this is what they wanted. But I don't think it's. I don't have to sit around telling you it's a great thing.
These teams, like those 4 teams, are a perfect example. But especially Jaguars, Raiders, Browns. I would throw the Steelers. Like they weren't as bad as their record before, and now it's all evened out. They all deserve to be. They're all like 6 and 8 teams.
And just
Jaguars maybe better.
A shout out to Pittsburgh's defense, which sacked Sam Darnold 4 times. And completely shut down the Carolina running game, which had averaged close to 200 yards in their 5 wins, had 21 yards on 16 carries. So you know that I am a Darnold defender, but if you take away his running game and you say, Sam, you need to lead this offense, Sam, it ain't going to work. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, beefy week. No buys, so we keep rolling on. Let's head to Soldier Field where the Eagles are looking to put the NFC in a vice grip.
They line up, and they sneak, and now there's a penalty flag. They call the touchdown. Now, it could have been defensive. That's what it is. Offside.
Pinch me with this call.
That is his third
Mark, this was your hand-picked call?
He now has 13 on the season.
You can always pivot. You can always pivot.
I don't know how we got to that point. That was Jalen Hurts' 3rd rushing touchdown of the day, which by the way has not happened on QB design runs by any quarterback ever in the next gen stats era. So I thought that would be an interesting call.
It's a 7-year era.
They also I'll get into why this was a little bit of a different game and why we had to go there.
Let me set this up. Yes,
I did not think it was like, there might have been a flag.
Somebody jumped. Looks like they'll decline it.
I mean, I agree with you. That was milquetoast.
Jalen Hurts, yes, tied a career high by running for 3 touchdowns. The Eagles beat the Bears 25-20. Interesting. Eagles are 13-1. That matches the best start in franchise history. But, Marc Sessler, this was not easy as many of us anticipated.
It wasn't. And I would say that, we say the Eagles keep finding different ways to win each week. This would be the case, again, because they had overcome a lot of their own issues. Jalen Hurts uncharacteristically threw 2 interceptions. The Eagles were outplayed for a big chunk of the first half. Jake Elliott, with the team up 17-13, missed a 38-yard field goal. They allowed Byron Pringle to essentially run in for a bomb.
Did you get a text there, Graver? You want to share it with us?
I have the Do Not Disturb on. I don't know what's happening. It's just sometimes.
Was that Jessica, perhaps?
It was.
Well, can you let her know we're doing a very highly rated podcast?
I will. She's watching, actually. She's watching the live stream, which you can go to NFL.com/NFL
Do you realize what she just did to Mark?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not surprised at all.
She actually would love to know that she just did that to Mark.
I'm not surprised at all.
Although, Dan, you stopping Mark, you could argue that's
and then Greg stopping Dan from stopping Mark from stopping Justin. So it's just like, I'm going to fold up the laptop and go home. It's utterly exhausting.
As the host, I'm sorry, Mark. I had to
You're
address
not sorry,
it
one bit.
because the audience obviously was thrown for a loop there as well. And and I just didn't want to leave them out in the cold.
I was a delightful bell. We didn't need to delve
I guess I'll
into
leave
it
that sound in the podcast version because
it would be
whole
very
thing.
strange for you to take it out now.
Now you have to.
All right, go ahead, Mark.
Well, it's just was saying the Eagles, like they were not perfect like they've been the last couple of weeks. They didn't even give Miles Sanders.
By the way, we got to wrap up this episode soon because Mark is starting to get fired up.
Next show. Go to the next game. What is the point of doing this?
I'm just saying I'm starting to see the anger building, and I know.
I apologize. I just find it like
I will not interrupt.
I find it tedious to take notes on a game, and then none of them are given to the listener. It's like I feel for the listener.
Tragedy.
I feel for the listener.
Yes, that's the ultimate loser here.
They struggled and they overcame their struggles. That's all I'll say about it at this point.
Anyway, what else? Give us some more of that.
Hassan Reddick seems like
AJ Brown, and this is not going to be favorable for Justin's ears. A career high 181 yards. He was dominant. When they started to make plays, this was their bad game. It kind of reminded me of the Chiefs game. It's like the Chiefs had a bunch of issues. They got out of it. What were the Chiefs on the other side? Mostly what we think. This was Philadelphia's version of that. They still had 400 yards of offense. They still had a defense that had 3 players with 2 sacks that dominated the Bears outside of Justin Fields doing a couple magical things. Fields got hurt at one point. He came back in. They've clinched the division. They basically have Dallas next week. They can be the number 1 seed if they win that. This was Philly's bad game. I don't know who's going to stop him in the NFC unless San Francisco plays one of their best outings.
And yet it's like box office. Justin Fields in a game against, Jalen Hurts, who's in the mix for MVP. I'm not saying Justin Fields should be in the mix for MVP in any way, but think of how valuable he is to the Bears, that he more or less by himself. And
you're being most valuable player guy. I like that.
No, I'm saying
I love that move.
In this game, how much value does he now have that he runs 15 for 95? He's on his way to having the greatest season rushing the ball any quarterback in the history of the league's ever had.
Some would say he's almost too valuable to this team. Like they might want to,
no doubt. But the fact that he has
them
them competing in this game is pretty special, and at least is exciting. In a weird way, the Bears keep stacking these losses while Justin Fields keeps balling out is perfect because they're going to have the 2 or the 3 pick in a draft with Jalen Carter. Like they
also have about $47 million more cap dollars than the next closest team, the Falcons.
Although I've been doing the free agency list, like. It's a bunch of players you don't want to be spending a lot of money.
We don't have to go. They don't. They also. The point being, they don't have a ton of cash tied up in a bunch of junk.
Anything else in that reporter's journal, Mark?
There's a ton more, but I think we need to. We're being told it's time to hurry the show up, and
but we don't want to deprive
the
listeners if there's something else in there.
Well, I'll email it to the listeners.
All right, let's then move back to Saturday. Why don't we? Where the Cleveland Browns, they were trying to stay in the hunt category, but they had to beat the AFC North leading Ravens to do it. Could they?
Watson, 5-step drop, looking left. He slings it left. Peoples-Jones, he's in, standing up, touchdown! The touchdown pass from Deshaun Watson to Donovan Peoples-Jones from 3 yards out, and Cleveland expands its lead.
All right, so there was a historic opening game Saturday. There was a highly memorable game in the snow in Buffalo at the end of the night. In the middle was, you don't usually have this. The worst part of the sandwich was all the meat in the middle, which was the Ravens and the Browns. And the Browns take care of business against Ty Huntley with a Lamar Jackson inactive, a 13-3 win. That Donovan Peoples-Jones 3-yard touchdown catch came from Deshaun Watson, who was making his home debut for Cleveland. So there you go. The Browns have won this game, and Baltimore entered having won 6 of 7, now drop behind the Bengals, who are looking up in the AFC North.
This would be like 2 beautiful, perfectly created and cooked, heated, buttery pieces of sourdough bread with some stale mayonnaise in the middle. Out-of-date mayonnaise.
So no meat at all.
No, just mayonnaise, out-of-date mayonnaise.
You would like this.
To your parallel. I'm
you
not
don't
saying
like meat, and this game lasted about 2 hours and 50 minutes. It was perfect for you.
Right, but Greg, I don't like stale mayonnaise either, just to throw that at you. But
I'm just saying, get the meat out of there.
I don't think I disliked this game as much as you guys did. It was serviceable.
It happened quickly. It was
quickly.
I mean, it just was over so fast. There were so few possessions, 9 each. The Ravens only punted 1 time. You know how hard it is to score 3 points when you only punt once? Here's how you do it. You get inside the 10, call a play for your fullback who has like space, and he can't get a half a yard on John Johnson, who he outweighs by about 40 yards. Nice defensive play by John Johnson. You get inside the 10 another time, Denzel Ward picks off a pass Deshaun Jackson doesn't fight for, really. Not a great throw either. 0 points there inside the 10 twice. You get Justin Tucker to miss 2 field goals. What the heck happened there?
That was
weird. You throw a fumble, and then the only touchdown that you give up, or you have a fumble, and then the only touchdown you give up in the game was after you stopped the Browns on a 3-and-out, but there was a penalty on a face mask by Justin Houston. It was just a really sloppy game from the Ravens, and the Browns, to their credit, been playing better defense overall and didn't make many big mistakes.
I mean, the Browns hurt the Ravens in every possible way you could outside of a dominant offense. I do think Deshaun Watson looked better. There were moments where you thought he looked a little more comfortable. Their offense is not what it was before, but even, I think it was important for Nick Chubb to have a bit of a better game. He's had a tough couple weeks, but Cleveland's defense, which has really cost them this season, sometimes against these divisional opponents, they show up and then they vanish again. But the Ravens, they've had these close games with the Ravens, and this was another one of them. And Myles Garrett, I don't know. Every week he seems to be I know he's not a defensive player of the year because their defense isn't special, and what does that really even mean? But he is among still the top 5 defenders in the entire game.
They kind of play like a lot of weeks. They play like an 8-6 team, which they easily could have been if they just closed out a couple of those brutal losses they had earlier in the year. So there's certainly no pushover, and if Watson continues to get better, although these are baby steps to say he's getting better, they're going to be trouble maybe as soon as next year, and they could be in berserker mode for the rest of the season. By the way,
they have a pretty easy schedule. I looked at the 6 and 8 teams. They have the easiest schedule among them. All winnable games here.
Well, remember it was Nick Shook who forked the Browns, so that comes down. He needs to reach out to a local food bank in Cleveland if the Browns improbably make the playoffs. But you know what? I think he would sign off on that. This was a wonky game in terms of scheduling as well, because you had the first game, which was the classic with all the scoring, and it went to overtime. So NFL Network held all these games, so they throw it to this game in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. So you miss the first quarter, and then the game goes super quickly, and then all of a sudden, and props to Colleen and Steve Smith and MJD. And I don't want to leave the last person out. Who else was?
Real
Rob. They all of a sudden had to fill like 45 minutes to an hour, I believe it was, and they did it expertly. So really a strange stale mayo. I think it has to be a meat product in between the sourdough, though, for the sandwich.
Lamb's tongue.
So this is the lamb's tongue of the sandwich. I would sign off on that.
I was at a place at the base of a mountain called the Party Doll, watching Colleen and MJD and the rest try to get through that, and it was a very strange time.
She was tough out there. No gloves on. It did have some
MJD and Steve were hurting, man.
MJD was ready to go home.
They were getting after Mike Rob, too.
Ravens are going to be killing themselves, though. They ran – Edwards went 7.9 yards per carry, and Dobbins went 9.6, and they managed to not be that competitive in this game. It's a pretty costly loss.
I liked Real Rob's leather jacket that zipped up like indent left. And he kind of looked like Zed's friend in the leather from Pulp Fiction, the third act of Pulp Fiction.
No, it was a very sharp,
taken out of that
sharp
collection,
outerwear.
The GIMP collection. Anyway, let's move on. We have one more game to hit. Back to Sunday. It was at Mile High Stadium, and this will be quick.
They toss it left side. Here comes Murray. Blocker out in front of him. Inside the 5. Murray leads the ball to the end zone. Touchdown, Denver.
Nice stretch.
Gets up and goes celebrating.
He's round 1 this year.
Dave Logan with a call, KOA. Russell Wilson cleared concussion protocol, but the decision was made by Nathaniel Hackett and the Broncos to keep him on the bench after that getting knocked out last week. So Brett Rippon steps in and gets some help from Latavius Murray, and the defense plays well again, has been the case all season for the Broncos. That has never been the problem. And against the Cardinals team without Kyler Murray, they get the win, 24-15. Murray, Greg, ran for 130 and a touchdown.
He's looked good, and Marlon Mack looked better in this game. Keeping careers going here in Denver. It was a sad game though, because Colt McCoy went out with a concussion, and considering his concussion problems over the years, it's concerning. It was on a 3rd and 1 QB sneak. At that point, the game was close. Trace McSorley came in and was overmatched against this Broncos defense, and it wasn't that close. It was interesting. I saw that there was 18,000 plus no-shows, empty seats
in Denver.
That's
a big deal. That is a football crazy town that has always loved their Broncos. That tells you, I mean, it's new ownership. They're freaking out when they see all those empty seats.
I think it's a top 3 football town of any NFL city, and I have friends that have season tickets there, and they've been unhappy, obviously, but to not show up because even when the team's bad, and they had a lot of bad teams, it's still a great party, and so it's like basically a very loud voice saying, fix this now. And I don't know what you go into next season with. But, Greg, I mean, not to belabor this conversation, if Brett Ripien is going 21 for 26, is it just little short dump-off passes and screens? What are we looking at here? That's so much better than what Russell Wilson was producing.
He had some wild, not good throws, but I don't know. He had a couple darts in there too across the field.
Well, he's an NFL quarterback, And sometimes we lose grip of that.
Or related to an NFL champion.
I just mean there were some pretty nice throws in there. I'm not going to say Brett Ripien was terrible.
His father's name was Mark
Ripien. But I wanted to make sure that it wasn't his. I want to make sure it wasn't his uncle or something. That's
what was that though? What was his last name?
Ripien, I say.
Ripien.
That's how I've always said it.
I know. You always say it that way.
There are things I say.
I think they say it Rippin, for what it's worth.
Well, then I should probably correct how I'm saying it.
The reason why it's not one of those last names where you hear it different ways.
Right.
I've only heard it from you, Ripien.
It's Rypien, so I think even as a child, a young football fan, I was hearing it as exactly.
I understand. So if it was in your head back then, it's not going to be
I'm not
easy
trying
to
to
get
stage a confrontation with the family over how they pronounce it.
Merry Christmas from the Ripians.
Exactly.
All right. That's it for the Week 15 recap on the video side. Thank you to everybody for watching. And remember, if you want to check out our Sunday Night Football recap of Giants and Commanders, check out the Around the NFL podcast, which you can get 5 times a week. Are you kidding me? The content that we're rolling out, unbelievable. Inspire change. Till then, heed the call.